What's going on, boys? It is day number 19 of reading through the book of Deuteronomy. Today we're going to be looking at a pretty short passage in this chapter. This chapter is actually split up into two sections, but overall this is a pretty short section that we're going to be taking a look at. First off, we're looking at cities of refuge, and then looking at a small section talking about witnesses. So these cities of refuge are, basically a command given by the Lord as Moses is speaking to the Israelites, and he's saying, after you've received this land that you have seeked out, that God has given to you, you have taken over the land that was obtained, had these people in it before. Now you must set aside three areas, three cities it mentions, and this would allow for people who unintentionally witness or are kind of in the presence of a killing would go. And so just kind of clarify what's going on here. In life, there's a difference between someone being a murderer and someone kind of witnessing an accidental killing. No one deserves to die. No one deserves it. But there's just some things that we just can't control, and God's timing for each and every one of us is unique. God has a specific timer that we are meant to be on this earth, and there's just times that we just don't get it, and we don't understand why people have to go. But there's a story that we're going to read here in just a minute that will kind of clarify what it means for the creation of these cities, these three cities for these people to flee to. Verse 4 through 5 says, "This is a rule concerning anyone who kills a person and flees there for safety. Anyone who kills a neighbor unintentionally without malice aforethought. For instance, a man may go into the forest with his neighbor to cut wood, and as he swings his axe to fell a tree, the head may fly off and hit his neighbor and kill him. That man may flee to one of these cities and save his life." So another way that I like to think of this is by the word solitude. Now, solitude kind of describes a place where you go by yourself. It's just you, and you cut off anything that is going to create a distraction. So one of the most obvious things is going to be the cell phones. And I've actually, been trying to look into doing something like that, but I just haven't come to my senses of putting it down on my calendar yet. But we can imagine that these cities that are created for these people who, accidentally, kill this person, or, they're doing something in the city, and, maybe they're doing something for their work, and then they accidentally, someone happens to be under let's say they're holding something in the air and they drop it and they kill that person. Like, that's not an intentional murder. That is by accident. And another way of looking at this is that, places like this kind of exist today. Think of therapy, for example. The whole point of therapy is to kind of, not necessarily calm your mind, but is meant to kind of bring you to a place to kind of reset your thoughts, reset your mind. There's people who go through all sorts of trauma, PTSD, as most of us are probably familiar with, whether it's from, previous encounters with somebody, or for a lot of people, it's for those who were soldiers in war. And every time they, feel this urge, or they see these kind of situations taking place, they have these thoughts residing in their heads. And I think for us, it's always something about our past. It's about, things that we did in our past, and, we're having a great day, and then all of a sudden it gets brought up and it brings us down. And, these things that we did, and we don't like it, and we don't know how to get over it. We don't know how to face it. But what's so great about God is that He has places for us to go. He has resources for us to use, and to reset ourselves, and to realize that the past has no meaning in our lives anymore. Now, on the other hand, this is where the difference is between someone who unintentionally kills and people who are out there who are serial killers. Verse 11 through 13 says, "But if out of hate someone lies in wait, assaults and kills a neighbor, and then flees to one of these cities, the killer shall be sent for the town elders, be brought back from the city, and be handed over to the avenger of blood to die. Show no pity. You must purge from Israel and guilt of shedding innocent blood, so that it may go well with you." So if you haven't caught on already, we are basically kind of looking at the creation of this almost new government that the Israelites are setting forth as they step into this new land. And with this one, it's basically saying, again, one of the commandments in the that was given to Moses by God was to not kill. And it's still something that applies today. We should not kill, because our lives are just as valuable as someone else on the street. My life is just as valuable as someone who lives on the other side of the world. A rich person's life is just as much valuable as someone who is homeless. And so for someone to think that, just killing is okay, that is wrong. It is not okay. I believe that, there are reasons why the court system exists in today's world, and while some people view it as harsh, there are things that, must be done. People don't go unpunished. Like, you're not just going to kill and get away with it. Like, you're going to get caught. And it's one of those things to where that's where we really have to love our enemies. There's going to be constant thoughts that come in our heads to make us want to do things and say things, and that's just the enemy talking to us. But we have already, been freed, been forgiven. The battle's already been won. But one way I like to look at it is that, the enemy's going down to hell, and so the enemy can't try and win you over. The enemy can't try and win the battle. So if anything, that he's going to try and drag you down to hell with him. And we have the opportunity to resist that. And the enemy's going to throw every single thing he can at you. And this is one of those things. It's like, well, you want to be powerful? Like, get rid of, take out these people who are, seem like they're just, thorns in your side. But that's not what we're showing. Jesus tells us to love our enemies, love our neighbors. There's going to be constantly people that are just going to reject us and tell us that we're wrong and tell us that we're, doing the wrong thing. But we know by, going by faith and going by heart that we are true witnesses of Christ. And this leads me to the last section talking about witnesses. Verse 15 says, one witness is not enough to convict anyone accused of a crime or offense they may have committed. A matter must be established of the testimony 2 or 3 witnesses. So the more people that witness a certain event, the better it is to signify that it is true. And another thing that I would like to kind of clarify and to kind of prove that, Jesus is who he says he is by the people who recognized him when he rose from the dead. They said there's about 500 people that witnessed him in person after he rose from the dead. And I think what's great is that, we know that, Jesus had his 12 disciples that were all witnesses of his life. And most importantly, there are witnesses of just his great word, witnesses of him healing, witnesses of him doing miracles, witnesses of him just being a great friend to us. And that's the great thing about it, is that Jesus wasn't just a rabbi or a teacher. He was a friend to us. He was a leader. He was a guider for us. He knew what the world needed to hear. But man thought something else. And I do believe that is why, Jesus did go to the cross, is because man didn't understand. Man doesn't understand God's ways. We don't understand all of God's ways. But I think that's for a reason. God limits our understanding because he wants us to focus on, the important things. He wants us to focus on things that are, on this earth, the things that we can control. And the best thing about it is that, God reveals himself to us through, I believe, a lot of times other people, the way that times other people speak to us and guide us, because without him, we get led down these dark paths and we, break these laws, break these commands, and we find ourselves in the deep depths of the pit, and we don't know how to get out. We don't know how to escape. We don't know really how to ask for help. And that's how a lot of people are in this world, is that they know that their ways of life are not getting them anywhere, but they don't know how to ask for help. So my encouragement to those out there is that if there's something that is bringing you down, don't let it just stay with you. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to get clarification about things. God constantly wants us to speak to him, and I believe that he is literally like our earthly parents to us. We go and talk to them and ask questions about our life, things changing about our bodies, things changing about the people around us, because we don't understand. And what do you do if you don't understand? You ask questions. You ask for guidance. If you don't know something, you don't learn something naturally. You ask questions, you seek, you search, and you will find. And so this leads me to the daily prayer. We're going to be looking in the book of Psalms again. Today's title is called Every Detail. And today's verse reads, "The Lord directs the steps of the godly. He delights in every detail of their lives." Father, I want to be more godly. I want to order my steps. I want my heart to be bent on following your ways. Show me how delight it is to do your will. I recall how Jesus walked on the earth and loved to please you, doing only what he saw you doing. Help me to see what you are doing. Assist me in hearing from your Spirit and being guided in all my decisions. Place within me a heart of passionate about the word and obedient to your calling. So I know this is something that I need to be working on more or less, but I feel that the more that I do these videos, the more that I feel more encouraged. And I think the best thing that I can do in my life, and I hope for you as well, is to learn God's ways, learn how to love others like Jesus did. And it's tough because there's a lot of people in this world that are just not going to understand, people who are going to just laugh and make fun of you. But I really do believe deep down that it is the right thing to do. On the outside, it's hard. And I believe for me, I have to work from the inside out and not try to do things from the outside in. And so that is the end of today's word. I hope that you guys have had a great Wednesday, and hope to see you guys tomorrow. Peace out, boys.